All right, what's up, y'all? This is John. Today I'm going to be showing you how to make a shoegaze style track using some samples from one of our newly founded labels, Noise Honey. Noise Honey focuses on a range of sounds, but primarily looking at styles like shoegaze, post-punk, and a lot of those types of indie sounds, DIY kind of, aesthetics. And, I used to produce this music quite a bit, especially when I was younger, and I still have a really soft place in my heart for this style of music. I particularly love bands like My Bloody Valentine, the Jesus and Mary chain, and on and on and on. And what I really love about this label is the fact that it has a really unique aesthetic to it, in the sense that the sounds that we've gone after and that Splice has gone after is really much trying to emulate and replicate those guitar tones, that dirty drum sound that you hear, a lot of like the really, broad horizons that get created with the reverbs and all those types of effects. So I figured the best way to start this, since I haven't really done a song like this in a while, was just to kind of go through some of the samples from Noise Honey and just kind of get our ears tuned to, what's actually available in the catalog and also with these sample packs. Now, one of the sample packs that I was recently checking out that just got released is called My Head Has Turned to Noise, Explorations in Shoegaze. So let's maybe just kind of go through some of these samples, see what they sound like, and just see, what I get inspired by, and maybe start building a track from there. Oh, that's like a sick drum groove right there that I might use. Love that. I might use that kick actually. Really cool 90s styled breaks. Oh, that's like a very kind of like Weezer kind of bass, but almost grungy. Like that drum beat a lot. Pretty cool hi-hat. What we're going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and pick out the first thing, which is going to be like my melodic, and this is going to be sort of what I'm going to, base my song around. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to look for something simple, not too crazy, not too heavy, maybe like an arpeggio or something like that, or maybe even an atmosphere. So I really like this atmosphere right here. So I'm going to go ahead and open this up. And I think this is going to be the foundation for the track. So I'm just going to go ahead and load this up. And so it looks like we're going to be working in B minor. So, okay, here's the sample. All right, so let's go ahead and drop that in. This track is at 120. So I'm going to go ahead and change Ableton to 120. Going to copy this sample. Let's go ahead and drop it in here. We're going to start off with this, and this is going to be sort of like the bed foundation of our track. So I'm going to go ahead and label this group called bus sample. Now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to load an instance of Splice Bridge. So let's go ahead and pull that up. And one of the cool things about Splice Bridge is that it'll actually sync up to whatever you have in the companion app or in just the regular desktop app mode. And what I'm going to do is, since we are working in B minor, I'm going to go ahead and select the key, which is B. And then I am also going to go and make sure that we're working in a minor key, because I want every sample that I audition to fit the key of the track that I'm working on. So let's go ahead and see what happens. So, right now I have it set to a very specific search. So I'm actually going to narrow that search down a little bit and see if I can actually go directly to this pack, which I can. So now when I go to this pack, hopefully everything that I'm auditioning that's not drum or whatever is going to be in the key of B minor. So that's going to help me out a lot, because it's going to really speed up my workflow in the sense of me not having to go and calculate, oh, this sample's actually in C, now I got to do these many steps. Splice will actually, with the desktop app, it'll do that for you automatically, which is really cool. So let's go ahead and go through some samples, see which ones I'm kind of vibing with. I'm not going to worry too much about the arrangement at this stage. I'm just really trying to get the vibe and the general idea of where this track could go. one thing I'm going to do real quick is I'm actually going to take out some of the lows and the highs because I just want to focus on the melodics at the minute. And, you know, this sound right here, since it's going to be atmospheric in nature, I don't really want it to take up a whole lot of the frequency spectrum. So I'm going to take a lot of the lows and the highs and kind of keep it around like this 1K to 5K area. Yeah, like right around there. That way when I'm auditioning preview, I can hear what I'm hearing on the other end better. I found something. This looks like it's a guitar sample. So one quick tip and trick is after you selected the sample that you want, you're going to want to go down here to copy modified sample. The reason you want to do that is because when you copy the modified sample, it's going to copy the sample in the key of your project that you set to earlier on. So that's really important. That way you don't have to go into Ableton or your DIIV of choice and then have to go and repitch it. All right, so I got this guitar here. I'm going to go ahead and label it guitar loop. I'm actually going to mute this other one real quick so I can just hear this in context. I dig that. I'm going to call that guitar. All right, so now that I got kind of like the two main elements of my track, I think what I'm going to do now is build up a beat because, you know, just a guitar by itself gets kind of boring. I want to be able to kind of start getting into like a certain groove, certain mindset. So now that I got that, I'm going to go ahead and create some empty tracks just to kind of focus on drums over here. So let's go ahead and filter this by drums, and let's just kind of play a few beats and just see what happens. So this one right here has kind of the beat that I'm looking for. Let's go ahead and drag that one in. I'm not going to modify that sample because I want it to preserve the original beat, the original transients and all that kind of stuff. So now that I got that beat going, I'm going to drag it all the way to the end here. Again, we're not worried about the arrangement at this stage. We're just kind of worried more so about capturing a vibe in the first, you know, 4 to 8 bars and just kind of playing around with that for a little bit and seeing where we can go. So that's sounding pretty cool so far. The next thing I want to do is I want to find a third element. And, you know, I always try to be really intentional about every single element that I add in my track. It's real easy for me sometimes to go in and just start dropping in a bunch of stuff. But, you know, for the purposes of this video, I want this to sound really, really cool and really tight. So I'm really going to try to limit myself to about 3 main melodic elements and then really try to weave them in and out and use them purposefully as opposed to just slamming in a bunch of stuff just because I can. So, you know, in terms of what I could look for next, and I'm actually gonna move the Splice app out of companion mode because it is a bit small for my taste sometimes. I love companion mode, but sometimes I just like it to look a little bit bigger. So let's go into our main browser, and I'm actually gonna change the, let's see, the sample name is, and I want to stay within this pack, but you know what? There's a couple of other Noise Honey packs that we should explore too. There's one called Sonic Bloom, which is pretty dope. It's a bit slower though. Transient Eternal. Oh, this one's got some vocals and stuff, so I think I'm gonna go with this one, Transient Eternal. So let's go ahead and type that one into the Splice app, and let's see if I can find this pack. And then bam, there it is. So we should be locked in. to my understanding, but if we're not, let's make sure we're locked into the same key that we were, which was minor. And then let's go down here. Let's make sure it's in B minor, since that's the key we're working in. There we go. And then let's try to find another sample that could potentially be more of like a lead. You know, right now I got sort of like the main rhythmic element, which is the guitar. I got the atmosphere in the background, which I actually have muted, but I'm going to bring it back a little bit later. I just kind of want to focus on each individual element before going too deep into doing the whole picture, right? So let's go ahead and audition some samples. Let's see. Let's actually play it back so that we can hear it in actual key. I'm actually going to sort it by loops, because I don't want any one-shots for this necessarily. And actually, let me make sure that this is actually in B, because I think I might be a little bit off. Let me see. Oh yeah, we don't need to be in minor. Let me take that out. That feels a little bit better. So I kind of like this vocal atmosphere. I'm going to use this somewhere probably. So let's go ahead and copy that over. Let's copy the modified sample version. So this is going to go over here. Let's drop this right there. All right, that feels good right there. Let's go ahead and look up another sample. Take that one. Drop this in over here for later. Again, we're still looking for a lead. Right now I'm finding a lot of ad-lib stuff. It's going cool. Drop that in. Try that. And you know, I'm giving myself a bunch of options in case I don't like anything, and then I got some stuff I can choose, right? Let's actually check out another neon, or sorry, noise honey, not neon wave. I'm so used to working on neon wave stuff. Yeah, I feel like that one could work. All right, so I'm going to start organizing this a little bit because it's getting a bit messy, and I like to keep my stuff nice and tight and organized, so that's going to be that. One thing we do need also eventually is a bass, so I'm going to go ahead and start labeling some of this stuff over here. So this will be where my basses go, and this will be this thing. So now that I kind of have like the core elements, I think, of what the track's going to look like, I'm going to start building out what I think should be the arrangement for this track. All right, cool. So let's go ahead and do this as the intro. This is going to be potentially, you know, kind of like where the verse or something like that would start. I'm going to do probably, you know, 8 bars of that. And then we're going to do a chorus. And then the chorus is going to be about 8 bars or so. Then we're going to do kind of like a little mini break for 4 bars. I don't know why I say 4 bars, something like that. 4 bars. Now that I'm saying it repeatedly, it sounds really weird. Let's do a verse over here. And then this verse is going to be, you know, potentially another 8 bars. Then we're going to do a chorus over here. Now, the structure for most indie songs is really simple, right? It's intro, verse, chorus, you know, maybe like a small little drum break or something like that. Then back to verse 2. You got a chorus there. And then you got the middle 8 or the, you know, breakdown or whatever you want to call it, and then you go back into the chorus again, then you have an outro. So that's just the standard sort of, you know, so obviously some indie songs or shoegaze songs deviate from that, and from artist to artist, there's always going to be a different way of doing that, but this is generally how they're built. Sometimes on the second chorus, they'll go a little bit longer. You know, they'll go for 12 bars, and then they'll hit the middle 8 right there. So I'm going to put in the middle 8 over here. And then the middle 8 here is, they call it middle 8 because it's 8 bars usually. But, you know, some tracks don't even have one, but most of them do. And let's go ahead and pull the third chorus over here. I'm just going to call this like chorus 3 or something like that. And that is usually going to be sort of like where they ring out and do a lot of the soloing, or maybe they're doing some crazy shoegazy stuff. And then, you know, they're going to be doing an outro or whatever. And, you know, at this point, we're at about 2 minutes and 30 seconds, which is potentially the standard length of a shoegaze song. And then I'll just call this the ending over here. So, all right, so now that we got sort of like that basic structure, I'm going to just start organizing these samples so that they're all inside of their respective places. So I'm going to put this over here. And then, okay, great. So now that we got all these samples, I'm actually going to put Splice Bridge up here. Sorry, I like to get really organized early on so that I can just see everything visually. The one thing that we are missing, though, that I do want to add is a bass. So let's go ahead and figure out a bass line that we can use in the verse. If there's anything that works here, I'm just going to type in bass and see. That bass line should work well. Go ahead and copy that. Let's create a track for the bass right here. So that'll be the basses that I'm going to be using in the verses. I think for the choruses, I'm going to switch those up. Actually, I don't know if this is going to be the bass for the chorus or the verse yet. Maybe I'll put them as the chorus right now. And, you know, I'm thinking about this in terms of somebody singing it. So, you know, that's maybe the way I'm thinking about it. Not so much as an instrumental track, but maybe I should be thinking about it more as an instrumental track. I don't know. I'm having fun, so there's no real goal in mind here other than just to have fun, right? So let's see if there's a different bass that I can use on the verses over here. Let's see. One thing actually I might want to do is I might want to actually switch these parts over to the choruses. So let me do that real quick, because it is getting a bit redundant for my taste right here. So I'm going to actually take this guy's out here and move this over here. That way I can create maybe a bit more dynamic contrast between what's happening in the verses and chorus. And, you know, 90% of music production, songwriting is really just problem solving and just kind of not being super committed to just whatever you started out doing, you know. I mean, that might seem like a cop-out because I'm switching that around a lot, but it really is true. You really do have to kind of adapt to what you're feeling, and it's totally okay to abandon ideas as you're making them. There's nothing wrong with that. You know, I've started out songs that I thought were going to be in a certain sound, genre, style, and then it ended up being something completely different, and I forgot what it originally was about. But you know, that's kind of the beauty of making music, is that you don't have to be tied to one specific idea just because that's what you started out with. If you find something that works better, evolve, adapt, and have fun. I do want to have some continuity though, so I do want to make sure that whatever I'm adding here isn't too different. So let's see this. So one thing I might want to do here is, you know, so I'm not too tied into the sample world, what I might do is add like a, maybe like an analog styled bass right here, which goes in the verse, and then in the chorus I can have something that's a bit more lively, and then I can follow that pattern. So let's go back over here. And you know, one thing I can do as well here, you know, if I want to copy some of the bass notes, or at least get an idea of what the bass notes were, I'm just going to drag in the sample from the chorus into the verse. I'm going to try to see what the notes are, and then I'm going to convert that into a synth. So it looks like we got the notes here. So I'm just going to quantize these so that they're not super off or anything. And all right, that's pretty good. I'm just going to cool. One thing I do want to add though is I do want to add a maybe like a guitar or something on top of that. Let me see. For these notes, I'm going to actually extend these a little bit, kind of make them longer compared to what we got in the chorus. And then go up right here. And then I'm going to bring this up a little bit. One thing I'm going to do with these is I'm actually going to change the transient on these real quick so I can make it a bit more choppy. I'm going to move this. I'm going to put some delay on it. This one here. Switch it to 16ths. Yeah, there we go. Make this thinking something like that for these notes. So this is going to be a, there we go. Let's see what that sounds like right there. Gonna make that serum sound a little nicer because it's pretty boring. Make this into like a moogier kind of bass. There we go. That sounds better. Add some delay to this here. I'm also going to add some shoegaze styled reverbs. I know I've lately been getting really into the native Ableton presets and audio effects. Even though I do prefer third-party plugins usually, but the reason why I've been going back to them is because they just don't add up a lot of CPU, and they're, you know, especially if you're using them sparingly, they just, you know, do such a great job at keeping your projects opening faster and stuff like that. Add some delay to some of these guys here. Gonna add another sample in. At this stage now, I'm just gonna be starting to, like, you know, add in different little sections. Actually, I might want to duplicate this one, so I'm gonna duplicate that section there. Gonna add in this sample here. Let's see what this, and then I think this guy, I'm just going to kind of fade it in slowly. And I think for the intro, I'm just going to let it be the drums. And then bam, I think we're just going to go right into it. So I'm going to cut this time right here, cut that. And I think this will be, one thing I might do actually on this is do like a little EQ3 pre-build into this section. And then maybe find a quick crash. Let's see if I can find a crash on here. Any crash. Yeah, maybe something like that. And drag that in. This will be like a little bam into it. Let's turn this one up. Oops. I think right here I'm going to add in a little top groove on the hi-hats. Maybe something like this. Now that might be a little heavy, so I'm just going to probably take out all the lows on that section, just so that it sits nice and neat with the main groove that we have. Gonna add a little bit of compression on it. It's already got a ton, but sometimes I just like to smash it. Just to kind of get the transients too. And then I think the other thing that I might do is, let's see if we got this. Yeah, maybe just add a little bit of transient shaping on it if we actually have it. I don't know if we got this on here. But if we don't, yeah, might be a little too much. Transient designers, they just accentuate the transients or they take it away. So that's why I'm using it, because I just kind of want those little knocky things to kind of stick out a little more. I might even add a little bit of reverb on it. Really short reverb. Just kind of make it sound really roomy. The other thing I like doing too is sometimes I'll go into like the actual sample itself, put it into beats mode, and kind of bring this number down quite a bit. Make sure that it's actually synced. There you go. Quantize it. I think this section's a little lonely, so I'm going to add in, let's see what we got on slow core over here. Something like that sounds cool. I'm going to use this one kind of like intermittently. I can't even say. Let's see how this sounds over here. Just gonna drop it in. Maybe add some like, you know, some very My Bloody Valentine reminiscent kind of sounding stuff right here. Right here, I actually feel like I want to add some one-shots, so I'm going to bring in drum rack, do kind of like a couple little, maybe some hi-hat stuff, just to kind of add some stuff on top of it.
Hey, call me back. Hey.
Yeah, maybe just like a couple of little elements like this could be cool. I'm going to drop that in here. Did I download it? Oh, there it is. You know, I like doing these little extra fills to tracks like this. It just kind of adds a little bit more life to things, you know what I mean? Let's add this hi-hat right here, because this is pretty dope. Like a little fill right here. Oh, let's actually turn this off. Don't play. And right here, I'm just going to go and do like a little... And then I'm going to actually chop this one up. And then this one can go here. Now I'm going to change the velocity on these a little bit so that it doesn't feel like it's all happening, you know, at the same level, but there's some energy. Yeah, something like that. And then for that, I would just add a little bit of reverb, just so that it doesn't feel too static. And then right there, we can add that crash again. Now this is starting to turn out to be a little bit more break beaty than I would have imagined, but you know, I'm a big 90s fan and I love that sound, so we're gonna go with that. And then I'm gonna drop that into the chorus, that drum that I just found, because I think it sounds cool. And before we go there though, I feel like I want to have one more element over here that just has more melodic to it.
Me again.
So on that right there, that's a really long sample, but a lot of times what I'll do is I'll just grab one part of it and then I'll have that be the loop point as opposed to having the whole thing playing that extended riff. So in this case, I'll actually change the bass notes on this to match the guitar. So let me do that. This is going to be the... Switch that bass to be, yeah, switch that. And then that bass is going to go, I'm going to join those notes together. Keeps that note. So now we can have the track kind of, you know, go into two different directions. There's gonna be bass here, bass there. So let's go ahead and I think I'm actually gonna have this thing come in right here at the beginning because it sounds kind of cool. Then take it out right before this part happens. take out one of those samples that's still playing that doesn't fit that part. So let's figure out what. I think it might be this one. Yeah, we don't need that one there because we've already used it. So now that we got like the A and B part of the song, right? The A being the verse and the pre-chorus, I guess we can call that now. That's what I would call it if I was, you know, a songwriter. Pre-chorus. Now that we got those parts, we can sort of start working on the middle 8, which is going to be the next big part of this song. That's going to be sort of like tying everything in from, you know, verse 1, chorus, verse 2, chorus, and then middle 8. So let's actually play it up until the chorus so that we can kind of get the context. Actually, I'm going to add in a couple of samples of my choosing. Do we have the Juno on here? Let's see if we do. I don't remember if we have the June 6th, but let's see if we do. If we don't, then we can create a very easy one. Oh, wait. Oh, we do. Sick. Great. So I'm going to add a couple of notes on here just to kind of give it some shoegazy vibes. Lead. Let's go and switch this over to this green right here. Actually, I'll make it orange. And I'm just going to start off with the default template, just the new preset. And I'm just going to raise the, you know, sustain, I'm sorry, the release on this quite a bit. Yeah, something like that. And just do like, actually, let me do it like this. We're doing a simple sustain note stuff here. I'm just gonna chop this one up. Have this pretty low in the background, and this is really just going to be for adding some harmonic content to the, you know, just sort of like the backing tracks and stuff. What we'll do is we'll take this part out over here and do like a little chop right here. Go from here. And then go back into the verse and pre-chorus. So I'm just going to copy and paste all this over here. Whoops, that might have been too much. Let me go like this. There we go. And then take this out. And then this will be our verse 2. Actually, I'll take this out from here, put it over here. Just to make this one a little different, let's pick out some other sound. this over here. Bam, bam. 1, 2, counting bars here to make sure we got the right amount. 1, 2, 2, 3, 4. There we go. 4, 4. Boom, boom. Gonna do some EQing on these. I'll take out this vocal. Now let's see if we can add something to the middle 8 over here. Let's see if we can find something cool.
I don't know where you are.
Now, usually for the middle 8s, I try to kind of make them a lot different. Something completely different, actually, if possible. Let's see. Go into, yeah, something like that's actually pretty cool. Oh, that's a sample that's already in the project. Like, where'd that go? Let's get that thud out of here. Sounds terrible.
Hey.
Are we locked into drums? Is that what's going on? Let's look up synth. Yeah, let's add something like. Yeah, some notes like that right there could work. A little bit of sustain on it. Let's bring this in. Let's add this here. There we go. Legato it a little bit. Chop these notes up. Some of those drum lines that we had. Might pitch that sound up just to kind of get it a little bit more. Add some roar. Can't spell roar apparently. And then last but not least, I mean, it wouldn't be a shoegaze song if we don't add some distortion, right? So let's go ahead and actually go to the sample bus. Same here. on the basses, just to kind of do some quick mixing, I always like to go to the 200 to 400 range, do like a small dip. I prefer to mix on headphones over speakers, so I don't actually have that on me, but I usually do like a dip around 250-ish just to kind of clear out some of the mud and bring up the subs a little bit around 60. On the drums. Just to kind of glue them together, I'm just going to do some really chill compression, nothing too crazy. Going to do like a 4:1 ratio. The attack is going to be around medium, same with the release. Bring that threshold down a little bit. Although I have been hearing lately that people have not been using limiters and they just go straight into Ableton. Apparently that's like the new mode. It's just go, let Ableton be your clipper. Which I think is kind of crazy. But a lot of people are doing that now. They're just not using it. So let's go over here. Doing some little EQing here. Don't want it to get too muddy. Take out some of those vocals right there. And honestly, the rest of that is just trying to dial in the sounds, trying to make sure that everything's harmonically compatible, not going too crazy with too many sounds going at once. And yeah, so I hope you enjoyed this quick tutorial on how to use some shoegaze sounds to build out a track. And yeah, see you on the next one.